Okay, so this is a tutorial on how to edit Northern Lights photos. This one I took during the Gannon storm in May of 2024, and it was the first time I had seen the Northern Lights. And I don't know if maybe you've heard of it, but it was a pretty large solar storm, and for it being my first, it was it was a mind-blowing experience. So I really didn't know what the heck I was doing as far as the photography end goes. But I think I did an okay job for it being my first time and really not having a clue what to do. And so I know people are going to wonder what the settings I used for this was. So the ISO was 160. I used a 14 millimeter lens at f 1.8 and then 4-second shutter speed. I wish I had done some shorter photos so that it wasn't so I could have gotten some photos that weren't so streaky. Uh, but whatever, it is what it is. And you could definitely go up on the ISO with that. Like I said, this was when I was one of the first times I had ever been shot at a nighttime photo, let alone a solar storm. So, I mean, it was an adventure, that's for sure. I went up to Hurricane Ridge in Washington State, which is a pretty high mountain range that you can drive to, and it's got lookouts and such. Anyhow, okay, so here we go. So the first thing I want to do with this photo is I because normally I would go to an 8 by 10, but because was this has so much uh, be beauty in the sky here. I don't want to crop it too much, but I think it's okay. I think we can afford to lose that little bit on each side here. So we'll just keep it that way. Uh, and you can crop your photos however you like. I'm just happy to do this one so that it'll fit in social media nicely and hopefully grab a little attention. Okay, so the first thing I want to start with is the blacks. I want to raise those up just a little bit. Well, not a little, maybe we'll keep it at 42 for now, and then bring up the shadows, of course. This is something I want to bring out sort of a little bit of the detail on the trees. So I'll do it that way. And then we'll double check and see what we need to do. And highlights, I'm gonna bring those up a little bit, but you see how when you go up too far, you start to get these kind of lines that weren't really there. They're more like digital noise, I would say. So you don't want to crank that up too much. I know it's tempting, but try to control yourself. Okay, so we turn up the exposure a little bit. Right here is the moon. See, it's in between the trees. Oh, the moon barely got any attention that night. And it set pretty early, so that was great because it really helped bring out the colors in the sky. Okay, so then I'm going to move to dehaze. And when you dehaze, it brings out more of the stars, which I love seeing. See how they're not stretched really? I mean, they are a tiny bit. And that's, because this was a 4-second exposure versus maybe an 8-second. If you did it lower, if you were at maybe 2 seconds and then put up the ISO, maybe you could probably go up to 800 without, too much noise. And again, that would depend on what camera you're using. Some cameras are better with reducing noise in camera, and some are not great at nighttime photography. I think I use the Sony A7R5, and it's one of the best nighttime cameras. Okay, so I don't want to touch the temperature really on this. I mean, you can see how it changes the colors uh, a lot. So I don't like to do that with the Northern Lights photos. I like to keep them as natural as possible. And let's see, it does look a little noisy, so we can put some denoise on there. And then also you can see when you denoise that it actually did affect the luminosity, I would suppose, of the photo. So we're going to need to go back and adjust the shadows a little bit just to bring down, see when you've got them up. See, this is what I would call over processed, where it brings out this sort of greenish hue in the shadows. That that's that's an indication of over processing, not necessarily just adding or enhancing color, which is your goal. You want to, if you are into color, you want to pull out as much color out of the photo as you can without ruining it. Okay, so let's go down to the darks and see if we can still lighten this up a little bit. I I prefer to keep some of the dark here in the sky, so I'm not going to mess with this too much with the tone curve. And you need to just play with it and figure out what you like best. Okay, so I think we've got, see, it's still got a look kind of a green tint to it, and so I'm going to bring down the blacks just a little bit. See if I can take some of that away. There you go. And you don't need to be as precise. I like to really spend a lot of time on my photos. So, and then see this satellite here. We're just going to go over here and get rid of it. Usually, I don't like to use the generative AI when removing things. Uh, it it's up to you whether you use it. I prefer it's much quicker to turn it off and just say, "Oh, there you go. It worked well." So I don't need to fuss with it any more than I already did. So, and I really wish I could get this moon. It was just a crescent moon, you can see. Anyhow, I'm not going to mess with that. Okay, so let's go back here. I don't really add any color grading either when I'm working on Northern Lights photos, just because I like to keep the color as natural as possible. And I mean, you could do we'll just look at it. So I would typically turn it yellow. I mean, that looks, oh, of course it looks cool. And if you were doing some sort of fun art project, um, you could, make it look however you want. Oh, wow, look at that. That's fun. So, I mean, if you're doing some acid psychedelic album cover or something, you could do that, and that would be fun. But I really want to just show as much detail and as close to as possible to what my camera captured without going overboard. So this is, I guess we could say this is the final. Maybe we'll add a little bit of vignetting. Even then, I just like to keep it as neutral as or as light as possible. Okay, so we'll go back to where we started. This is what it looked like when we started. This is the after. I probably would not put this on my website, although if somebody requested it, I would. And, you know, as far as social media goes, I think this is a great picture. So, okay. So I hope that was a great tutorial for you. And if you have any questions, let me know. If there's any other projects you want to see, also let me know. I love to hear people's ideas. Okay, thanks.